Hello, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast. Episode sit down talking YouTube video. Like I said in the last one, I don't really know what to call this yet. I don't know if I'll ever call it anything other than just my podcast sit down talking videos. But I really do appreciate you being here, and I really just want to, before I start this episode, really just kind of say and extend my sense of gratitude towards those people that have reached out and have messaged me about some of the episodes and have had a conversation with me and really just expressed how, or I guess the sense of impact that they've had on their life. To me, that is absolutely everything. There's zero amount of words that I could actually express and say that will really be able to, I guess I won't be able to express how much your words and you reaching out truly means to me. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And it goes so much further than you may even think or know. So, I just want to really relay that before we start. But this episode is talking about the power of saying no. And I feel like a lot of people, when they've talked about a similar topic or they've talked about just learning to say no and what that really looks like, it's oftentimes learning to say no to other people, to certain circumstances. And it's never, I shouldn't say never, but very rarely do people talk about what that looks like from our own perspective of learning to say no to ourselves, learning to say no to honestly some very positive things that might benefit our life in some form, but that aren't fully in line with where we're trying to go or what we're trying to do. I'm speaking on this now because this is the most fresh topic that is on my mind. And there's been a lot of things that I've been working on for the past three or 4 months. And I've dedicated a lot of time, a lot of hours into them. Or I guess into this one specific thing, but there's been so many other things that have circulated around that. And upon some self-discovery and some very powerful conversations that I've had with some people, I've started to really realize that the thing that I've been spending so much time on and the thing that I've been chasing might truly not be in the utmost alignment with myself, where I want to go, and my overall, I guess, overarching dreams that I have. I've had some massive dreams in my life for quite some time now. And one of those big dreams, and honestly the most prominent one, is YouTube. I have, ever since I was young, I have always been just absolutely infatuated with YouTube and with the idea of being a YouTuber one day and really just making films that learn to impact people and doing that in whatever way I see fit. And I will say, I did not think that I would ever be sitting down, talking to a camera and expressing myself in this form. I guess, again, because I once did a podcast, but I never thought that I would be doing things like this. But I've seen the sense of impact that it can really make. And it is something that thoroughly, oh my gosh, excuse me. But it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. And it's something that I find is an expression of creativity in its own way. But also I've loved making all of the other videos that I've made as well. Honestly, I will be so frank with you this morning. I sat down for probably 2.5, 3 hours and watched back through all of my videos. Every single one. Well, not every single one, but mostly almost all of them, I guess. And it was one of those things where I just looked back and I was watching them and it brought so many interesting emotions towards myself. And it was something that it was kind of like this feeling that it was a feeling that I don't think can be created in any other way than watching back. And it was honestly just the first moment that I realized kind of why I'm making videos and what it's for and who it's for. Because when I watched those videos and I sat there and I looked through all of it, I just felt so almost inspired to keep on sharing and keep making more and trying new things and going on new experiences and really just doing everything I can to do this as long as I can, essentially. And as I was watching back through these videos, the whole entire time, all I kept thinking was that this is what I love. This is what I love to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to put my time, my effort, and energy and attention into. I want to see myself go as far as I kind of can with it. I want to see where I can take this and what that is really going to look like. And a thought that I started to have over the past little while was that not everything that I'm doing in my life complements this dream, this goal, and these desires that I have. There's a lot of things that I've been putting in just an absurd amount of hours into that I will very transparently say have taken me away from that main goal, which is YouTube, which is my big goals within that. It's okay to have hobbies, and I have a lot of hobbies, and there's a lot of things that I love doing, but there was a lot of things and has been a lot of things in my life that I've ultimately done that have overtaken my job, have overtaken my hours spending on YouTube, have just come in, swooped into my life, and I've just been doing them as though that is like the biggest dream and the biggest goal that I have in my life, when in reality, it's not. And it's not something that fulfills me in the same sense that it does when I make a video. And when I see myself really create something, or I see myself share something from a very vulnerable side of myself, like those are the things that fulfill me. And ultimately, the main reason why I've latched onto these other goals and these other senses of dreams is out of fear. It's out of fear that I won't be able to achieve at this. It's out of fear that I won't be able to pursue this sense of a life that I really aspire to do. And ultimately, it's just an easy way for me to run away from the fear. Me latching onto these other goals, these other ideas, these other dreams are are simply me just running away from the fear that is wrapped into pursuing something like this. Like, I know that even when I say it, when I'm like, I want to pursue YouTube, I want to make videos and continue to make videos and do them weekly, it's terrifying. And it's honestly something that I definitely don't have the utmost confidence in when I express that, because of the cliche of like, oh, you're chasing YouTube. Interesting. That's an interesting goal. And I think that's the same with a lot of things in life. And there's been so many things in life that I've pursued and I've done, and I've been able to silence a lot of those I guess negative comments surrounding them, or maybe lack of belief from some people when I've done them. And every single time that that's happened, it's always just kind of left me feeling empowered and understanding that I'm doing these things for myself. But see, I think I've done that so many times, and I've fallen into this trap and this loop where I've gone off and known what one of my goals is, which literally YouTube for years now has been that like number one goal that has had the most fear surrounding it, but is also the one thing that I want to chase more than anything. And I've always felt that I need to latch myself to other things as well, so that if YouTube doesn't work, then at least I've pursued these other things that I knew I was able to succeed at. And that's ultimately where this whole idea of learning to say no comes in. As good as something might be, as powerful and impactful as something might be, sometimes it is so important, and honestly most important, to say no to those things. Even if it is a great idea, even if it is something that you might want to do someday, it's so much more important to learn to say no to those things and really cherish these things that you're doing, or this path that you're on, or what you're trying to do. I'll also relate this to a financial side of things. When I first started pursuing filmmaking and getting into the whole freelance world of things, when I was starting, I didn't do it in a very traditional route. And I honestly, I think due to a lot of ignorance, I ignorance and just being overall stubborn, I told myself that I wanted to start filmmaking and I was going to make it my job immediately. So what did I do? I reached out to as many people as possible, made it happen somehow. And then I just started buying more and more camera gear with this idea in my head that it's always going to be like this and that I'm always going to continue to grow from this side and from a clientele side, and I'll see myself really succeed in this field, so that all of this gear that I have and all the gear that I've been able to accumulate will always be able to be paid for, and I'll always be able to get more. And a lot of times I would just throw things down on a credit card because I was like, I just want to keep going and really build out my camera gear so that I can jump into more professional shoots and show up and have people really think they know what I'm doing. And as good as that was and as good as that's been, I have always found myself really struggling to say no to certain things, or just being able to accept what I have right now and accept this path that I'm on, and not needing to grow at such a rapid rate, but learning to really grow in the state that I'm in right now. And one of the biggest realizations that actually caused all of this was earlier this year. I had these basically just a massive array of projects that were on the go, and it was really lovely. It was beautiful, and I felt really grateful for it. But there was a lot of things and a lot of clients that I had that I just fully did not align with. There was a lot of projects that I was taking on that I will be so transparent about. It was only for the money. There was nothing else. There was no passion in it. There was no inspiration in it. It was literally just for the money. And I found myself being the least happy I've arguably ever been while making all of that money. And it was the first realization that no matter how much money I make in this industry, it will never compare to those projects that are extremely fulfilling. Earlier this year, we made a film, or I guess last year, we made a film about my run last December that I did. And it was a beautiful process. There was so much work, so much time that went into that. And we made absolutely $0 and honestly lost money in the process. But it was extremely fulfilling. And that project, especially at the end when we were able to have a big film premiere for it and stuff, it was one of those moments where it was like, this is what it should be. This is what it should feel like. Of course, I had it was me that was on camera, so I had a very big personal attachment to it. But it was that feeling of purpose, motivation, and honestly, just like a pursuit of a dream. And that's, again, where I started to learn to say no. I started to learn to say no to opportunities that were presenting themselves to me because I knew that they weren't fully in alignment with me, my morals, my values, and the things that I wanted to pursue moving forward. And now I've been on this kick for the past 6 months probably, where that's been so important and honestly number one with me, where I've been learning to say no. I've been learning to only take on projects that I feel are in full alignment, or with people that are in full alignment with myself. And it has posed difficulty when it's come down to making videos. And of course, that again is honestly a sign of me just being stubborn and not just jumping in and doing a couple projects for money and to help out on that side of things. But I really struggle with it. And it's one of those things where I don't ever really want to see myself suffer. I'm the first person that will do hard things. I'm the first person that's always open and accepting of that. But to suffer through something that doesn't need to be suffered through, for me anyways, it's just not a way that I want to live my life. I want to pursue the things that I want to pursue, and I want to feel fulfilled while I'm doing those things. I love making films. I love sitting down, even talking to a camera. Like right now, I'm having a great time. This is a lot of fun. But again, you can't always do things like this, of course. And there is a lot of times when I've noticed that as I'm doing these things, as I'm growing, as I'm sticking to a goal, which for myself right now is to pursue YouTube on a more, I guess, serious level, but honestly just a more consistent level and consistent basis and post every week. Like that's like my goal right now is every single Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to have a video out no matter what it is, no matter what it looks like. I am just focusing on the consistency factor right now. But with that comes almost the responsibility to say no. Having that responsibility of saying no to certain things, to certain opportunities that present themselves is one of the most difficult things that I've learned about myself in this process that is the most difficult thing that I struggle with when it comes down to this whole process and the growth within this. Because I am a person that's always had 40,000 things on the go at once. One thing was never enough for me. I had to be either traveling, making films, running a podcast, doing coaching, building pools, like just all this random shit all at once, always. And that's how it's always been. And I've acknowledged this over the past year where I've found myself falling into the trap of constantly having way too many things on my plate at once. I've acknowledged it on more times than you can even believe. And every single time that I've acknowledged it, I've said this is never going to happen again. And every single time it's happened again. And right now in this moment, it's happened again. I committed myself to something that 4 months ago I thought of and I thought was a beautiful idea. And it honestly is. It's a beautiful thing. It has the potential to impact so many people and make such a big difference. But you see, the problem is that I latched myself onto that idea while neglecting this path that I was already on. And I've had this issue where I know where I'm going. I know this path that I'm on. And then I somehow let external distractions come into place. And I honestly just start thinking of all these other possibilities and all these ideas and all these opportunities and everything. And I lose sight of what it is that I'm truly trying to do. It can never be simple for me is the biggest thing that I've understood. I suck at having life be simple and having myself stick to one goal or maybe two goals. It always has to be multiple. And those goals need to be enormous. Like this goal that I've been working on for the past 4 months. Literally every single day I've worked on it every single day. Or I've been planning meetings. I've had meetings. I've done all this stuff with it. And I've just kind of realized that all that time, all that effort that I put into this one thing honestly could have been filtered right back into YouTube. It could have been filtered right into that one main big goal that I've had. I came up with this one idea, decided to make it as big as it could possibly be, make it the biggest thing that it's ever been. But you see, the issue with it is that I took myself away from my main focus and my main goal. And it's funny because this other goal and this other idea that I've been working on, the ulterior motive behind it was to help grow YouTube. It was to help grow essentially my presence on social media as well, and that community and building something. Like it was in my head, I latched on to the idea of what was possible and the potential rather than simply just doing the work on what is right in front of me. And it was really terrifying when I acknowledged that. And I just acknowledged this last night too. So like this is fresh. But what it really poised onto me is my inability to say no. How much I struggle with saying no. How much I struggle with sticking to one thing and one goal and simply being myself. You see, I've had this dream for years now that I have wanted to travel and make YouTube videos. That is it. Like has always been my biggest goal of life. And there's been so many times in my life that I've distracted myself from that. because I've come up with these ideas that are massive and gigantic and take up months and months of my life, which are ultimately just distracting me from my main goal. And I've done this for months and years, like years and years of my life. I've always done this. No matter what it was, I always had multiple goals and multiple dreams that I was chasing all at once. And obviously it's a very cliche thing, but you can never put in 100% on multiple things. And I think that's really the main thing that I understood, or have understood now, is that if I want to be 100% all in on YouTube and making films, I need to be 100% all in on YouTube and making films. I can't be chasing all of these other goals and all these other dreams on the side, because inevitably all the time, all the effort that goes into chasing all of those things is ultimately being gifted or taken ultimately from the time and the attention that I'm putting onto YouTube. I had this analogy the last week or so that has been running through my head constantly, and it's that I found myself getting on a roll with YouTube where I get into this rhythm. I start to feel myself coming up with more ideas, sitting down, being more creative, putting in a lot more time, a lot more effort into the craft of YouTube and filmmaking in general. And then I always find that I turn my attention to these other things that are on the side. And then when I come back to YouTube, I'm expecting myself to still be in that rhythm, but of course I'm not. It takes me time to get going again. It takes me time to get back into that rhythm, get back into that groove, and start to get back to where I was when I got distracted. And then I'm sure you guessed it. Of course, it's a constant cycle. It's a constant loop where I do that again. I get distracted by the other things that are going on. And it's not even, I guess, just a distraction. It's more of this feeling that I'm not giving enough time and attention to these other things that I genuinely need to be giving time and attention to. They're not hobbies. They're things that I'm pursuing at the same time that I'm pursuing this. And that it just doesn't work. It's been leaving me more stressed, honestly more miserable, and just overall less fulfilled. And it's kind of taken away from everything. I can't, like, YouTube in general it's a mentally draining process is what I've understood. Because as you might have seen, it's like I don't get a lot of views at all on these videos. And I'm in it for the process and the journey. And I'm just excited to be making things that I genuinely want to look back on and watch myself. But of course, I will also say this out loud, is that I do have a goal with making this something. I want YouTube to be something. I want to be able to connect with more and more and more people and make this into a community. I want to see my creativity start to go to new lengths, and I want to take you along on some of these journeys that I end up doing in my life. But it is going to take a lot longer to do those types of things if I always have these other things on the side, if I'm always pursuing multiple things. And oftentimes I actually find myself very confused when it comes down to making films and sharing things about my life, because I always feel like I need to share these other goals and these other things that I'm pursuing with you at the exact same time. And then I get confused on what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to go and what that looks like. And at the end of the day, none of it seems to make any sense, because I am obviously super scattered with all of it. So I am really just learning that process of saying no to myself, learning what no looks like, feeling the uncomfortableness or the uncomfortableness, feeling how uncomfortable it is to say no to myself. Understanding that I need to say no to these big ideas and these big visions that I have in all these other fields if I am seriously committed and devoted to following through on YouTube. And that's how I am feeling right in this moment, is that I need to learn to say no more often. I learned that with from a financial standpoint as well. Like I used to buy so much camera gear, it was actually absurd. And camera gear that I did not need, and I seriously still to this day don't need, but I have it and I own it. And I'm obviously very grateful for that. But I had to learn how to say no, and more so just ask myself, what is it that I need? And what is it that is going to make these things that I'm doing possible? Okay, so the camera just shut off because I exceeded my time limit on the filming process, which means that it is time for me to start obviously wrapping up. But learning to say no is one of the most important things that I've had to learn this year. It has created a lot of very negative feelings towards myself at a lot of different times because I've realized that how easily I could have avoided certain situations if I simply just said no to myself. But I'm also grateful for those times that I didn't say no because I've now learned what that looks like when moving forward. What situations I really do need to start saying no to if this is my goal and if I am going to move forward on this path that is very driven, very focused. It's not always going to be easy, of course. I don't think it ever is. It's the same as saying no to other people in your life or other experiences that seem really fun, but they ultimately just aren't in full alignment, or they might simply take away from what you are trying to achieve and pursue in life. But anyways, this has kind of just been my little spiel on learning to say no and what that really looks like, what that feels like. And I do want to just give a little precursor that it is not easy to say no, and don't ever beat yourself up because you haven't said no. It is one of the hardest things to do in life. And I'm sure that we've all found this at certain points in our life on how uncomfortable it can truly be to say no, especially to other people. But with yourself, I think it's a lot easier to justify. And when you can learn to say no to experiences and opportunities and these goals and these dreams that you have, so that you remain focused on what it is that you truly aspire to do in your life. If you have that, then I think it's a very powerful tool to have. But be very graceful with yourself in this process. I was not very graceful with myself for a very long time. I beat myself up. Even now, at certain times, I still continue to beat myself up because I'm feeling the repercussions of some of those yeses that I've said in my past. So just learn to say no. And again, there's a lot of times that you'll say yes and then you'll feel that immediate feeling, or it might not be an immediate feeling, but you'll feel that feeling at some point where you acknowledge that you probably should have said no. It might take a little longer than you would have hoped, but it's important that you feel those feelings, you acknowledge them, you be very vulnerable with yourself, but you also be graceful with yourself. You learn to love yourself in that process and hold your hand throughout this because nobody ever told me any of this stuff. It's just been one of these things that I've been learning throughout my process. And a lot of times I felt like I'm so behind in life. I'm feeling like I'm just off the rails when it's coming down to this whole entire life. But I think it's the closest I've ever actually been to making this possible. And that's a really beautiful feeling. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And I hope that you can take something from it or that you resonated with it in some form or another. And again, I appreciate you for being here, and we'll see you next Friday. Cheers. I don't know why I did a peace sign. Bye.